the show, but the pain still grows. Some strangers to you and me.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the All Sports Focus podcast. We are here back finally for our first Steam Room of this season. And I am sure hoping because two of these members in here do not particularly see eye to eye. And Troy and Pap, say what's up.
Hi.
And then
Hello.
we have Ryan also. So we got the four of us here today. We're going to be talking about some hot topics, just throughout college football, NFL, debating them. And hopefully not killing each other is the goal, especially two of them. So we'll see you guys after the intro. All right, hopping in here. So the first topic we're going to be talking about here, thanks to some of the guys in this call. The first one from Ryan Barlow: the Heisman race isn't even close for Ashton Jeanty. We're going to go around here, and I want Pap to start us off. What do you think, Pap?
Of course you do.
I would have said Ashton Jeanty maybe 2 weeks ago, but Travis Hunter's playing out of his mind. Last night, or yesterday, it wasn't even last night. It was 2 touchdowns, interception, 2 pass breakups. You can't make that shit up. That's insane.
So you think it's Travis Hunter over Ashton Jeanty?
By a long shot.
Troy, as an Ashton Jeanty fanboy, what do you think?
He's just doing his job, bro. He's not top anything in any of the stats. He's just doing his job. You look at Ashton Jeanty, sure, you could be like, oh, he has 312 carries. He gets the ball every play. So that's why he has 2,300 yards. But he's averaging 7.3 per carry. You have to understand that. 7.3 per carry off of 312 carries while having 28 touchdowns is absolutely ridiculous. We haven't seen something like that in a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging almost a yard and a half more per carry than the number 2 person on the rushing list. So I just think that, and then him being head and shoulders above in touchdowns versus Travis Hunter being number 10 in receiving yards and tied for 15th with 10 other people for interceptions. Yes, it's cool that he's doing different things and he's playing both sides of the ball, and that's really rare. But we wouldn't have rewarded Shohei Ohtani for being a two-way player in the MLB with an MVP if he wasn't dominant hitting. If he was just batting 250 and was middle of the road with home runs and his ERA was 5.0, we're not giving him the MVP.
That's what he did.
Yeah, okay. So that's yes, it's incredibly rare, and my hat's off to Travis Hunter because it's hard as hell to play both ways in college football, especially Division I, and at a high level like he's doing. But I don't think that just because he's playing both ways, we should say he's the Heisman when he's, like Troy said, not leading in any statistical category. He's not leading in interceptions. He's not leading in receiving touchdowns, receiving yards, pass breakups, anything. He's not number 1 at. So why should we not reward the guy who is absolutely destroying. He's averaging 7.3 yards per carry when teams are putting 9 guys in the box. Like these teams that Boise State's playing are forcing them to throw the ball, and he's still averaging almost 7.5 yards a carry. And he did it against the number 1 team in the country too. It wasn't like he ran for 20 yards against Oregon either.
Yeah, Oregon's top 5 defense in the nation right now, I believe, and he had 192 yards and 3 touchdowns on him. So,
and they came within 1 point of upsetting the number 1 team in the country, who was undefeated, and we talk about as being dominant rolling into the college football playoffs.
Cam Ward's the Heisman.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, he is kind of trying to carry that team to something. But
to be honest, Miami would probably be would have went 7-5 without Cam Ward. But I mean, I personally, I don't even know. At first, yesterday, I thought it was Travis Hunter. And then the more research I did and stuff, I looked at it. I was like, yeah, the Heisman's a fan favorite kind of award. And usually it's a quarterback award. Just quarterbacks aren't that good this year. I think Ashton Jeanty should win it, but as a fan favorite type of award thing, I think they're going to pick Travis Hunter just because of popularity and everything like that. If based on the last couple of years, their picks, obviously Jane Daniels was the obvious pick last year because of 50-something touchdowns, passing touchdowns. So I don't know. I think when you look at who Ashton Jeanty has put up yards against, because that was my main argument, was who has he played really, but like you guys said, he did it against Oregon, but I mean other than that,
played more ranked teams than Colorado.
Well, let's see. Derrick Henry
overall, though.
When Derrick Henry won the Heisman in 2015, he only had 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns. So he has the same amount of touchdowns as Jeanty. And I think that was through the playoffs. Yeah, that was through the playoffs. He has less yards, and he has playoffs. So they're going to be number 4. And he has 80 less rushing attempts and has more yards than Heisman Derrick Henry. So,
but there wasn't a 2-way player when Derrick Henry was playing.
There's only been only one 2-way player's ever won it, and that was Paul. There's been plenty of people who played both ways.
I think he's good on both sides, and it's hard to beat. And it's not like he's a shit. It's not like he's a bad wide receiver. He has 1,100 receiving yards. That's a good wide receiver in college. And I'm not sure about his defensive stats, but
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying if he's playing basically every snap, he should be up there.
And sometimes when it's close like this,
top 5 conversations.
The biggest thing that kind of changed my mind is I always think obviously I know it's different in the draft and everything, but this guy's a top 5 pick. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to look like running backs don't get drafted in top 5, but he's playing both ways, and that's, I mean, I don't know if he'll do it in NFL, it'll be harder because everything's just faster, but 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns, he's probably gonna end up getting 100 receptions by the next they're not in the championship, so maybe the next game if he gets 8, he'll be at 100. That's insane, and he also has stats on the other side of the ball.
Okay, but my thing is, so the last time a receiver won the Heisman was Devontae, who had almost 1,900 yards and 26 touchdowns. Travis Hunter has basically half that. Because he only has 14 touchdowns, and he got 3 of them just in this last game. And then 1,000 or 1,100 yards receiving. So
but then you have
but Pap, you can say but he's still playing every snap on offense too. It's not like he's doing half and half. He's doing full time on both sides of the ball.
My thing is that you look at competition, we've always said that Big 12 stats are inflated, especially on offense. You look at Shedeur Sanders is not looking to throw to anybody but Travis Hunter solely to pump up numbers. They won 52-0, and they're just blowing people out in these last couple of games because they're playing terrible teams. So I just think it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit of a false narrative to say that he's racking up all these numbers and stuff, because defensively, which is supposedly his main position, he isn't really racking up that many stats. He only has like 4 picks this year.
I mean, you could argue that they're throwing away from him, I guess. Like, how many pass targets does he have? Like, that type of thing.
But the thing is, every other Big 12 offense is scoring a lot of points. And so
a lot of games didn't end in that high scoring yesterday. I mean, a couple of them did, but nothing crazy.
No, not yesterday, but across the season, we look at Big 12. Statistically, Big 12 defenses are worse than any other power conference. I don't think anybody can debate that. Statistically, overall, from top to bottom, and so I just think that Ashton Jeanty, with the numbers that he's put up, how far ahead he is of everybody else in the race, as far as rushing numbers. I mean, 29 total touchdowns with almost 7.5 yards per carry. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah.
I would see it if Travis Hunter was top 3 in some statistic. If he was top 3 in receiving yards or touchdowns or interceptions or pass breakups or literally any statistic at all, if he was maybe top 3, you start to get into a conversation. But when he's number 7 in something, when he's tied for 15th with 10 other guys and another thing, and he's 25th in pass breakups, it's just, he's not dominating in one stat. And that's where I just would be hesitant to say he's the Heisman.
All right, we're gonna move topics here. My question here, well, not really a question, it's a statement. Alabama will make the college football playoff. My reasoning is they're the second team out in this last ranking, so they were 13th. And you look at based on who won and lost and everything like that. You go down the list. Yes, Ohio State lost to Michigan, but they will stay in the college football playoff. There's no way they would go from 2 to out. Miami is obviously the big loser there at number 6. So, and 2 unranked losses, there's no way they're going to put them in the playoff field. And they don't have the strength of schedule. They don't have the wins. They don't have anything to where you can make an argument for them to get in at 2 losses, especially not even playing in the ACC championship. We said ACC was weak. And Clemson was ahead of Alabama. And Clemson is now in the ACC championship, yes, but they lost to South Carolina, and Alabama beat South Carolina. So I think Alabama will steal that 11th spot or 12th, whatever they place them at. They will be in the playoff. I just think the committee is going to look at their wins, their quality of wins. Yes, they have some bad losses to Vandy and to Oklahoma. Who is their third loss? Tennessee. But I mean, you look at their quality wins, ranked. I count ranked opponents as when they played them, they were ranked, not now that they're ranked. I guess that's how the committee does it too, is like when you play, if they're ranked then, it still counts as a ranked win if they're not ranked at the end of the season. But I mean, you look at what they did to a ranked LSU team in a night game in Death Valley. I mean, absolutely ran them. They beat Georgia. Yes, it was kind of an ugly game. But I just think overall, the only way I think they don't make the playoffs is somehow Clemson beats SMU in the ACC championship to get 2 ACC teams in there. Because I don't see a way where the committee keeps SMU out being 10-1 or 11-1 now and playing in the conference championship, because they're not going to penalize someone for making the conference championship and losing that extra game like me and Ryan talked about in the last podcast. So I think the only way possible, like I just said, is if Clemson somehow wins, and I don't think Clemson will beat SMU. I mean, watching SMU play Cal yesterday was just like, okay, SMU's legit. Like, they'll put up a fight in these playoffs. And when I heard yesterday, Alabama is solely based on the success. Their success is based on how Jalen Milroe is playing. If he shows up, the team plays well. If he doesn't, they don't show up. So their wins, they beat ranked LSU, beat ranked Missouri by 34 points. They beat South Carolina by 2 points, and South Carolina's right behind them in the rankings. They beat Georgia, and that's really all of their main wins. Yes, they lost to Tennessee, Vandy, and Oklahoma, but, I mean, Tennessee's in the playoff. Vandy's a good enough team. I mean, Vandy played Tennessee close for the most part yesterday, but I just don't see
not a good team.
At first, I could see that, but then watching them play, like especially after they kind of woke up yesterday. I mean, Nico had some bad throws, but I mean, they're going to host a playoff game, and they'll probably be. I mean, you just got to think everybody's basically just going to slot up maybe 1 or 2 spots. Some things will get shifted because Ohio State will probably fall to like 6. But I think it's all but guaranteed now that Notre Dame's especially going to get the 5 seed, which is like glamorous to them. Do you think that, Pat? Do you think Notre Dame will get the 5, or do you think a team like Penn State or someone like that will steal it?
It depends. I mean, it's all based on these rankings this Tuesday, because if Penn State's the 5, they're going to stay at the 5 because you can't get punished for losing the championship game. But if we're the 5, unless Penn State beat Oregon, it's basically like 5 or 6. They're both good spots, especially with Boise State going to move to 3. So.
So I'm going to raise a hot take here just to get a little argument spike. Do you guys agree with me on the Alabama one or disagree? What do you think?
I really just don't know. I mean, it having the 12-team playoff, we really just don't know what the committees really kind of go for here, especially when Alabama historically has always been a playoff performer, but they get 3 regular season losses and 2 of them being kind of bad beats. I really don't know what they're going to go for. I mean, I could see it happening if Clemson. Well, actually, no, because Clemson can't really get punished for, as Pap said, he can't get punished for losing the championship.
Well, but their thing is they have to win the championship to get in, because the only ranked teams they have played, they have lost this season.
It's true.
It's true. And so, I mean, like, if they were to have beaten South Carolina, I think this is a completely different conversation because they're just taking Miami's spot then in the playoff, and Alabama's kind of screwed. But since South Carolina pulled off the win and Syracuse pulled off the win and Texas beat Texas A&M, because if Texas A&M would have won, then that would have opened the avenue for another SEC team to get in. That's not Alabama.
I feel like
here's a bigger question to raise too. I mean, I know obviously they're going to favor Alabama over South Carolina, but Alabama beat South Carolina, but it was a 2-point game. They both have 3 losses, and South Carolina's 3 losses are Ole Miss, Alabama, and LSU.
Which LSU was ranked at the time.
Yeah, and then we have Alabama, like you said, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, which is not even close to what South Carolina played throughout the whole season, too.
And your losses to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma weren't by 1 point. I mean, they were pretty marginal size.
I'm going to walk you through what I was listening to on College Game Day yesterday with Herb Streak and all those guys. So first, obviously, they look of if you guys played each other. So Alabama and South Carolina played each other, and yes, Alabama won. And then they look at common opponents. So common opponents, like Pap just said, LSU, both teams played them. Alabama smoked them, and South Carolina lost.
Oklahoma, they both played, and South Carolina smacked Oklahoma 35.
Yeah,
so I mean,
Alabama only put up 3 points on Oklahoma,
and South Carolina also beat Vanderbilt 28-7.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but then you look at they played Missouri, who is a ranked team. South Carolina won, but only beat them by 4 points. It's really the only common opponent they
still sounding like South Carolina should make instead of Bama.
My thing is their strength of schedule is Alabama's 14, South Carolina's 15. So right at the exact same point, you look at who has been the more. South Carolina's been on a winning streak to close out the season, playing very well. Alabama has been a roller coaster. So your stock heading into the playoffs is trending up for one team and trending who knows where for the other. Yes, Alabama beat them, but like we said, only by 2. And was that at Alabama?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Alabama, so in Tuscaloosa. And you have better losses with South Carolina than you do with Alabama. You don't have the unranked losses. All 3 of your losses are to teams that were realistically competing for the SEC championship up until like 2 weeks ago, versus 2 teams that are bottom feeders in the SEC. So my thing is, I think if you put Alabama in there, it's just because brand recognition. It's that Alabama's been in the playoffs before the past couple of years. They've won a lot of national championships. So they're going to perform better in the playoffs, we think. But I don't see any numbers besides the fact that Alabama beat them by 2 that says Alabama has a better case than South Carolina. Because even the common opponents, like we said, you've got the Oklahoma and the Vanderbilt, who are Alabama's 2 worst losses. South Carolina blew them out. That's just my I think it'd be a travesty if they keep out South Carolina and put Alabama in solely because of that 1 2-point win.
But that's the main argument, though, is the main thing. The number one tiebreaker for literally every sport, every single thing is head-to-head. I think you go down those list of, like, comparable things when they haven't played each other. Like, you go to common opponents and you go to strength of schedule when teams haven't played each other, but these 2 teams have played each other. And I don't see how in the committee is Alabama favorited. That's SEC big name favorited because, let's be honest, they'll draw more viewers, they'll draw more money. Hey, Garrett's in here.
What up?
Speaking of
I said, let me.
Speaking of, we're talking about
Alabama versus South Carolina, who should make it?
Yeah. Well, considering that Alabama beat South Carolina,
Oh my god.
me personally, think
That's my exact point.
Alabama
our
should be over
point-
South Carolina.
Our
But
counter
if you
to
look
that
at it
was-
now, South Carolina is probably on a hotter streak than Alabama, so it could go either way, honestly.
that, and we looked at common opponents, and we said Oklahoma, who beat Alabama, South Carolina won by 30, and Vanderbilt, who beat Alabama, South Carolina won by 21, and then Missouri, they both beat, and South Carolina's losses are better, but it definitely is going to be just that head-to-head. Do they get past that, a 2-point loss in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah.
And then
Which,
the other thing
No,
we
you're
said,
right.
Garrett, was basically the only way Alabama or South Carolina gets in is if Clemson loses the ACC championship. Because if they win, then it's 2 ACC teams in, and that other SEC team, what's that, the 4th? Then
Yeah.
the fourth.
SEC.
The 4th would be left out.
yeah.
All right, here's my hot take for the day. For everybody, this is probably going to piss Troy off a lot, but I'm going to say it anyways. Boise State will not make the college football playoff. They will lose to UNLV in the Mountain West Championship, and they will no way in hell put 2 Mountain West teams in the championship. I mean, in the playoff field. And here's my reasoning. Because UNLV is a ranked team, and they are just as good as Boise State. Yeah, they don't have Ashton Genty, but
What do they have?
let me pull up the receipts here.
He's got the receipts.
So they are on. So you guys all know the drama from UNLV
You know
at the start
they-
of the season. How
You
they're
know they
starting
beat UNLV already, right?
by
I
5
know they already
points.
beat them, right? Yeah, they still beat them.
And it's at
Okay.
Boise State.
What have we said? How many times have we said it? What's the hardest thing to do in football? Is beat a team twice.
True.
I just
That's
don't
why
see it
I
happening
think-
this time, though.
That's why I think, honestly,
You got
I
a
think
Vegas
Texas
team
beats
that's used to the
Georgia.
warm weather going to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
Pap, stop with the water bottle.
I mean, they beat them. They beat
Oh.
them at UNLV last time, bro. I mean, like,
Okay, but UNLV Stadium is Allegiant, where they're like quarter full stadiums every time. I just don't think Boise State has like honestly played like kind of close games. Where's their score at?
And
Yeah,
Boise State's
I-
gonna look like
hold
dog
on.
recently, bro. They have not looked good. They've
yeah,
had a close game with
56
San
to 14
Jose.
is
They
close.
beat Wyoming
45
by
to
4
24 is close. Yeah, 62 to 30 is close. 28-7 is close. 56-24 is close.
You're looking at the beginning of the season.
I'm looking at the whole season. I've listed off like 7 games already.
They beat
42 to
Nevada by a
21 's
touchdown.
close.
They beat Wyoming by 4 points. They beat Boise by
Okay.
2 scores. Or not Boise. They beat Oregon State. And then, like, literally, it's always this, like,
Hey, Oregon
I'm
State
telling
was
you,
a
dude.
Pac-12 team last year, so it's literally beating
And also
5 team.
that San Jose State game that you're that I was talking about, it was literally with 5 minutes to go. It was 28-21.
Yeah.
So like,
Okay, but don't
And then-
act like every other contender hasn't. Georgia took Georgia Tech to 8 freaking overtimes.
but guess what? Georgia Tech's gonna beat San Jose State 56-0. So, like, I don't know, like, what's the point here? Like, all these teams that they
Tech's
beat
not
are
beating anybody 56-0.
maybe San Jose State. They're terrible. They're 6-4 and
Hey,
the best team they played is
UNLV
like
took-
Air Force, bro.
UNLV took Syracuse, who just beat Miami 2 overtime.
Okay, but we can play the comparison game all the time, but every good team this year has played a bad game against a
And I
team
think
they
that
should
game will be
smoke.
on Friday for Boise State.
UNLV beat Hawaii by 2 points, bro. Hawaii's
Like,
always
it's
been
just
just
like-
terrible.
It's
No,
just
but
like
use the
Boise.
same
Like,
logic that you were just saying.
that's what I'm saying.
I
It's
know.
like you could
I
say it
am.
either
I'm
way.
saying it's just the same argument. You could say that Boise only beat Wyoming by 4 points. You could say the same
But-
exact thing.
Just like add on, I know like you can say Boise State had a really close game with Oregon, but overall, UNLV played significantly better. Besides obviously their conference play, Kansas they beat Kansas. That's a good win, showing that like Kansas beat some good teams later in the year. They also beat didn't beat them. Overtime lost to
Almost
Syracuse.
And
that
that's
team
about
goes on to
the
beat
end of
Miami.
that's about the end of their.
They lose 5 to Boise State.
The one tough
beat
opponent
Oregon
Boise
State
State
too, so
played
it's
was
not a big
Oregon,
win.
and yes, it was a close game, but Oregon was
Close
not
game
playing
was
good
1
football.
point
not
with the
saying
number one
Ore-
team in the
I'm
country.
not even saying
We
Oregon
all
State's
said
good.
Oregon played like crap in the first 2 weeks. They almost lost to Idaho too. That's
Okay,
you could
it's
say
still,
the exact
like-
same thing. Like
But don't
Boise State
use the
literally has
comparison that they beat Kansas and they almost beat Syracuse, but then you discount the same thing with another team.
It
I
doesn't
just
matter.
said the only tough
Whoever
game
wins
they
is
played
in.
was Oregon.
If you
I
lose,
was
you're out.
agreeing
If
with
you lose, you're out. If you win, you're in. So
Yeah.
we're arguing about a game that's going to happen, and we know UNLV's going to win, and we'll just rub it in your faces when they do win.
that.
Yeah, well, Ashton Genty's going to run for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on UNLV. So
No, he's not.
I mean,
Okay.
you
Did
it
keep
against Oregon.
You keep Ashton Genty under X amount of yards. He only had 128 yards the first time he played UNLV. By the way,
Only
yeah, and only
33
one score.
carries. He
Yeah.
averaged less than 4 yards a carry.
128 yards. You know how often we talk about in any game a running back making it over 100 yards in a game
On
is
30 plus carries. That's literally almost damn near
Still.
every play they're handing it off.
Well, yeah, we've known that the whole time.
Barely
like
been
over
Boise's
3
offense
yards.
for most of
thing.
the season.
Barely
Yeah, that
over
was
3
like-
yards a carry is
that was-
not that
that
good
was-
of numbers.
It's actually almost 4 yards a carry. Actually, if you do the math, it's almost 4.
Yeah.
Whoop
3.9 per carry.
You know how much
actually.
better that is than a lot of running backs across
Yeah.
college
Like if
football
we're
and
talking,
the
if we're
NFL?
talking, they were able to hold him one time to his like worst rushing score of the year, then I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, if
I just still
128
think
says
it's a
worst of the
disgrace that
season,
Boise-
then
I still think it's a disgrace that Boise State is even being talked about being the 4 seed because I find that as an absolute joke too.
What do you
Who
want
in-
Notre
who in
Dame
the
to be
Big 12
talked
is
about
better?
as before?
Please.
Right now the way Arizona State's playing, they should be, if they win, I think they should be the 4 seed. Look at
then
we
why
just
hasn't the
argued
committee put them there? The
because,
committee's had Arizona State ranked 15-16 the past 2 weeks.
I mean because they have 2 losses, like they're going to look at that because I don't think Boise State has, like we just listed their opponents.
Yeah,
It's like-
and you could say that, but it's not. Arizona State lost to Cincinnati. Let's see what else.
Ryan
Texas
just
Tech.
said every team plays a bad game.
But
You-
they have
you
more
just-
than one bad game if they've lost multiple.
But look at them right now. It was the same thing we were just saying with South Carolina. They're on a hot streak right now. They're playing really good football. Arizona was a team that was preseason ranked in the top 3 of the Big 12 and ranked actually preseason ranked too.
Yeah,
and they
top
dropped them
3
50
of the
on
Big
them.
12.
Okay, but how
Top 3 of
what's
Big
Arizona's
12 isn't
record?
that good.
It's still a Power 4 conference. It's better than the freaking Mountain West.
No,
with
but
the
you're talking about
Hawaii
Arizona.
Rainbow
You're talking about
Warriors in
Arizona
it.
being ranked before the season. What's Arizona's record right now?
Like 4 wins, but they still have. They're gonna have a
Exactly.
top. They're gonna have a top 5 pick on their team. Like they're still not terrible. Like, that wasn't my point that they beat Arizona. It was just like, you act like the Big 12 is just utter garbage. It's
They,
still
lo-
a
they
Power
lost.
4.
They
It
lost
literally-
to an 8-4 Texas Tech and a 5-7 Cincinnati team.
It doesn't even matter. But we're arguing about something that's like doesn't even matter because we know whoever Boise State's in there or Arizona State, whoever is even in that 4 spot, 3 spot, doesn't even matter. Whoever they play in the first round, the odds of them winning are first, second round because they have a bye. Whoever they play, they're not going to win. They really aren't.
Both teams are
There's not-
losing first round, and
Yeah,
I bet
they're
Boise
not-
gets blown out by 30 by whoever they play.
That's funny.
Because I mean, if
that's
they're
not
the
ridiculous
four,
to
if
say.
they're the 4 seed, they're most likely going to play either
Penn
if
State.
State,
Oregon
Notre Dame.
loses or Notre Dame.
No,
Or Penn
Penn State or Notre Dame.
If they play Penn State is not good. Look, Penn State is only there because Ryan Day sucks more than James Franklin in big games. At least against Michigan, especially.
I think, yeah, they'd be better off against Penn State. 'Cause Notre Dame's really good against the run and really bad against the pass. So, but yeah, they'd definitely be a way better game for Penn State.
All right, next topic here. Well, speaking of it, Pap says who will win the college football playoff. So, as of right now, like Ryan said in his, there is no juggernauts anymore. No team is dominant. Every team has shown to be vulnerable. So I'm gonna start on the new man, Garrett. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Who do you think will win the college football playoff?
Oh man, it's hard to tell because, like Ron said, nobody's a juggernaut anymore. You've seen everybody's flaws at this point. When it comes down to it, I think, gosh, I hate to say this, man, but I want to say this is crazy. This is crazy. That's about to come out of my mouth. I think. I think the Georgia Bulldogs found a way. I think they do, and I hate to say that, and it's weird to even say that because they played horrible. I'm talking about they played horrible against Georgia Tech, but I mean they've been in these playoffs before, these 4-team playoffs, and they have experience even with these young guys. And I mean Carson Beck doesn't look good at all, but I mean Kirby Smart he knows how to coach just when he needs to coach, and I just think like Georgia maybe does give him that edge. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Georgia.
Who should go? Who wants to go? Pat, let's hear it.
Obviously, no. Not gonna say Notre Dame, even though I'm growing a lot of confidence towards them. We're playing. We're good.
crazy.
Right? We're playing good. I think we're one of the best teams in the country. So, and then here's if Alabama gets in, I'm still gonna roll with them. I think they're tested in the playoffs. They play there every year, mostly every year, and it's hard to beat a team when they have a bunch of experienced guys from last year still there, which is kind of hard to beat. Like we kind of saw to Michigan for many years. They kept bringing guys back, and then they just kind of, even though Michigan went undefeated, even if you lose in that regular season, playoffs are a lot different. I mean, when you have a bunch of experienced guys against guys who've never been there before and already kind of are just all giddied up to be there, like they can just start spanking teams, and I wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going to say Alabama.
Troy?
Well, if Carson Beck can play any way like he did against Georgia Tech with a 130 QBR rating, 295
second
yards,
half.
and 5 touchdowns, that's the
In
whole
the second
game.
half.
Whole game,
He didn't do
5 touchdowns, 295
They were
yards.
down. They had 0
130
points in the
QBR.
first half.
But he
All
didn't
I'm
have any
saying-
turnovers. That was the big
Yeah.
thing.
That's been the biggest problem with their close games and their losses. He's just been throwing picks every 2 seconds, but he didn't do that. And sure, they played him close, but I think that was more on the defense. I think he's going to go down to the Ducks or the Bulldogs, and I think the Bulldogs are going to get it just because of the playoff experience.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think Georgia plays to their opponent. If they play a good team, they play really well. If they play a bad team, they play bad and just barely enough to beat them. I want to respond just to Pap's Alabama. I think Alabama is a good team and this year's team would be well suited if it was a 4-team playoff where you only have to win twice. You just have to win a semifinal and a championship, because I think Jalen Milroe has the talent level to do that. And this team is, like Pap said, a lot of experience from last year. But I think where it gets tougher is we've seen Alabama's highs are really high and their lows are pretty low.
Yep.
So I think having to win more than 2 games now, especially because they're not going to have a first-round bye, having to win more than 2 games is going to be tough to get that same consistency out of Alabama. So I do think, like Troy said, I think it's Georgia and Oregon in the national championship. I think Georgia plays to the level of competition and gets it done in a super close game. I mean, field goal or less final score.
I will. Man, this is tough. I think it's Georgia, but I'm also very, very nervous that these terrible starts to these games, like going down 17 to Georgia Tech, going down 28 to Alabama, I feel like these starts are going to catch up to them at some point. And I feel like it's going to be, I just had this gut feeling that it's going to be in the playoffs. And I don't know, I want to say Georgia, but I mean, a team who, they only won by 10 points last night in Texas. But, I mean, they're experienced. They were just in the playoffs last year. They almost beat Washington in that college football semifinal. And Quinn Ewers has a bum ankle. I don't think – I just don't know. I feel like Georgia's late starts, bad starts, are going to catch up to them, and they're going to get down too much, not be able to climb out of a hole. Because the teams they're playing aren't just going to stop playing either. I feel like if someone goes up big on them, I feel like they're just going to keep going. They're just going to keep piling it on. So I think with the draw,
who besides Texas A&M has Texas beaten that's good this year?
No
I mean,
one.
it's just like it's the same thing you could say with like Indiana. I mean, who have they? It's just the luck of the schedule draw. They didn't play anybody.
But
the only team they played was
none of us
Georgia.
I think that has to be-
Indiana's
I think you
going to
gotta
win the
talk
national
about it, though.
championship.
Yeah, I think you got to talk about it, though, when you have Texas as the 3rd-ranked team, and their one ranked win was against a 20-ranked Texas A&M at the end of the season.
Where they 3 times got inside, or twice got inside the red zone, threw a pick, fumbled, and they got a punt blocked. And A&M couldn't score for shit on any of the drives.
Mm-hmm.
They got a veteran. They have a very veteran defense, and if Quinn Ewers, he didn't play very well in the second half at all. I don't see why not. I mean, Personally, I think they could
He
win
gets
the
healthy, potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't trust Georgia. I really don't. I mean, they keep getting away with these close games and these terrible starts where luck's going to run out. You're not going to have the same, it's not that they just sit there and the ball just goes their way, but I mean, they were that one forced freaking fumble against Georgia Tech away from losing. The quarterback holds onto the ball, Georgia Tech wins the game. And Georgia's sitting here having to play for their life in the SEC championship game. So, I mean, it's just like that. The ball bounces one way or the other, and you look at it. When you're playing an unranked team, it's a rivalry game. But you're playing an unranked team, you should be dominating them if you're supposed the national champion, in my opinion.
A lot of
but
rivalry games against
I-
unranked teams that they didn't win, so...
Yeah, like
You know who they remind me
Michigan,
of?
Ohio State. Ryan Day can never coach against Michigan, and he lost. I mean, this Michigan
What were you
team,
gonna say,
everyone,
Garrett?
not good.
You know who Georgia reminds me of in the NFL? They remind me a lot of the Kansas City Chiefs. Just barely finding ways. Whatever it is, they just something happens or they just figure out a way to win the game. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. But they also have that experience level as well on both sides. So
That's my thing. I feel like the ball is
It's
going to
weird.
bounce the other way at least once in these playoffs with whoever they play.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they're going to have to face, I would base right now, let's say, they're going to have to play Tennessee again. Tennessee played them close. They're going to have to play at Ohio State. They're going to have to play in Oregon. They're going to have to play somebody. They're going to have to play Texas next weekend. So, I don't know. I mean,
my
this
thing
is the most.
Georgia has played 7 unranked teams. So what? That's like what, five ranked teams then? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's more than the majority of the top 12 has played against. I mean, most of the top 12 you see them playing maybe 2 to 3. I mean, Georgia has to play 5 of them, and they only got to play one of them at home. I'm pretty sure. So I mean, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I think so.
That's
But I mean,
that's just
with these mega conferences, you're going to get teams that get those schedules, and then you're going to get teams that get Texas schedule. And
no.
Indiana's
I'm
schedule.
I'm not making an
Honestly,
argument.
I'm kind of surprised
like-
that Texas' schedule was so easy.
Yeah.
Just with the number
I'm-
of ranked teams in the SEC. Like UMass played more ranked SEC teams
Oh,
than
yeah,
Texas
that's
did.
true.
That's crazy.
It's just the luck of the draw. I mean, it's all.
No, we're not really making an argument that like that is. I mean, it is stupid, but I think it's more of just like you have to look at who. Wow,
Jesus.
bless you.
I'm
I
sorry.
think you have to look at who played, and Texas just hasn't played to the level of competition. Sure, they have one less loss, but the competition just hasn't been nearly the same for them. I think that's why, like, them being at the 3 is a little bit outrageous.
I think it'll be very telling in the SEC championship
Yeah,
to see what Georgia does. How does Carson Beck play? Because it's still in Atlanta, right? They didn't move it.
probably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically a home game for Georgia this time versus last time it was in Austin. So I think it'll be very telling to
They
see
lost
which
last year, though.
Georgia team that we see. Is it the team that went into Austin and smacked them, or is it a team that takes Georgia Tech to 8 overtimes?
Anybody got a topic they want to talk about? One last one. NFL topic, or we want to stick with college football?
Go Irish.
Well, that's. Oh,
Well, that's okay. That brings up: do we think Notre Dame should join a conference?
I do
Is
think.
it
Yes,
is
they-
it going
I
to come
think
back to bite Notre Dame in the ass?
I
Because
think they should
you-
have to.
if you look at an ACC field, say Notre Dame was in the ACC field this year,
They would have swept.
you probably have Notre Dame SMU in the ACC championship, and now you're a guaranteed spot because it may not be this year, but I do think there will be a year that Notre Dame gets left out as an independent because they maybe have the same number of losses, but they're fighting for the at-large bids every year because they're not in a conference, so they never can get a guaranteed. And you're never going to touch a first-round bye if you're Notre Dame. You're always going to have to play an extra game than those top 4 seeds.
Yeah,
But here's
you know,
the thing.
every time. No, hold on. Every time we talk about it, Pap's like, "Yeah, but Notre Dame is making so much more money off of the being independent deal than being in a
That's
certain
being-
conference." And obviously that's a real argument. But the thing is, like, championships are also going to bring in money to a team, and they're not only going to bring in money, but it's going to bring in way better recruiting. I think that's why joining a conference would be beneficial in the long term, rather than.
What's your point on recruiting? We have like one of the we
Yeah.
have top 5 almost
I'm not.
not
No, I'm
every
not
year, but
saying
top
it's
5
bad. No, I'm not
2025.
saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying I think
Yeah,
it
Georgia
could be
gets a lot of
it could be
recruits
better.
because they've
Yeah.
won
yeah,
back-to-back national championships.
yeah. But
Like,
here's just like my
the-
biggest thing with like that argument is that like the number 5 seed is literally catered for Notre Dame.
Mhm.
It's like they made it basically. It was like that was a big argument. Like, what's this 5 seed all about? And let's say like Notre Dame, we can't say Notre Dame plays a bad schedule because every year they play a pretty solid schedule, and next year we play a pretty tough schedule, and we play Alabama in 2 years, Texas in 2. Like it's not like we're playing these terrible teams and we're just sweeping them. Like obviously we lost NIU this year, but after that we spanked every team. Don't laugh, Troy. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying, Pat, from a point of like Notre Dame's schedule is weak and that's why they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm saying if you have a safety blanket of if you're playing in the ACC, a fairly weak conference, Notre Dame realistically will probably end up in the ACC championship almost every year with a chance to win the ACC championship and a chance to get an automatic bid into the playoffs and a first-round bye. Even if you say you lose 2 or 3 games that year, because if Notre Dame has 2 or 3 losses, maybe they're pushed back where now you're competing with the Alabama, the South Carolina, the Miami, the even Ole Miss, you get stuck more in that field where if they had dropped one other game along with NIU, there's a chance they don't make the playoffs this year. But if they're in the
Yeah.
ACC, where both your losses are potentially out of conference, you're undefeated in conference play, you're playing SMU. I'm going to take Notre Dame over SMU in the ACC championship. And now, boom, Notre Dame's probably a 2 or a 3 seed in the college football playoffs. That's just I'm not hating on Notre Dame. That they played a tough schedule. They played good teams this year. That's not my point. I'm just saying for their own likelihood of making the playoffs year in and year out, I think being in the ACC gives you a better chance of always being in the conversation.
Let's be honest,
Maybe he should join the MAC, since that seems to be where their biggest competition is.
Okay, bro.
There's a 3-letter word is the reason why Notre Dame is not in the conference. It has to do with
National
money
champions.
and NBC. The NBC TV deal and how much gosh dang money they are making from that. And if you make the playoffs in this 12-team playoff you should
get a home
almost
game
every year, and you get a home game, you're going 11-1, 10-2 almost every year, and you're making more money than these teams are making in the ACC from their TV deals. Why the hell would you go? Let's be honest.
Wait,
We're making
hold
more
on, I
money
have a
than any
question.
team in the country besides
I got
maybe
a question.
like Georgia.
Why are we saying they didn't have an easy schedule? They played 2 ranked teams, and that was Navy and Army.
We have the most ranked team. We have the most ranked wins in the country.
So 2.
It actually?
When we play, we have 5. We have
We
5.
played them, yeah.
We played them.
I mean, they played
Who?
Louisville, they played Georgia Tech.
Oh,
Georgia Tech
I see Tamu in the beginning there. I didn't see the. Yeah.
yeah.
Wait, who
We
else
play-
was
Georgia?
ranked?
It would be
Louisville.
Georgia Tech was ranked. I think too. They're 23
Louisville
or
was
something.
ranked.
And
Yeah,
obviously Army,
Georgia
Navy.
Tech.
Why
Or not-
was
yeah,
Louisville even ranked, dude?
They beat
They
Clemson,
were undefeated at the beginning of the year.
Oh,
and they beat Clemson.
Louisville's
Yeah.
now.
Ron, what do you feel
84?
about that, man? What they did to those Wildcats
I,
this past week?
I
Only
just
Mark
wanna
Stoops
I
was
didn't want to
fired.
bring that up directly. I didn't
I
wanna
know,
bring
but
that up.
It's-
I had to.
It would time up so perfectly if you, in the same year that you drop Calipari and look at how bad Arkansas is playing in basketball versus Kentucky in basketball, you drop Mark Stoops, who, yes, longest tenure, but has never been able to actually crest the hill and do anything.
There was a dude at the concession
There was
stand in
literally
the
a
middle of the game.
Kentucky player at the concession stand in the
He
middle of
left
the
the
game.
sideline and went to the concession stand in the middle of the
What the-
game.
So he's lost the culture in the same way that Calipari lost the basketball culture. Move on from him. The Tulane head coach, who up until they lost to Memphis, was talked about as potentially, if Boise State loses, they make it in as the next highest ranked conference champion. Played at Kentucky, coached at Kentucky, has a lot of ties to the university. So if Stoops walks away, you hire him from Tulane, and you start all over with a program with a lot of new head coaches in the SEC, because there's really not that many. I mean, I think Kirby Smart after Stoops is the next longest tenured coach. So
Yeah.
a lot of young new coaches in the SEC, and you start over with a new culture.
For that $44 million buyout, I'll chip in $50. Maybe that'll make a difference. I don't know.
Just
The only
like
way
Adam, we're talking about
he
coaches.
leaves is if he does the same thing as Calipari and either walks away, retires.
Hopefully, North Carolina offers him the job, or UCF, because North
Yeah.
Carolina's poverty.
We don't want him.
Just
Can we talk
so
about
we're
all
talking
the fights
wait.
yesterday, bro? And can we?
Oh yeah.
What do you
The
mean?
Hey, can we
flag
talk about
thing.
the
I only
fact?
know about the one.
I mean,
What's happened?
Arizona State planted the pitchfork in the middle of Arizona's logo. That's
Oh, wow.
freaking crazy. Like they
Florida did it to
stabbed it
Florida
in there.
State.
Florida did
Yeah,
it to Florida State.
North Carolina State did it to North Carolina.
I want to wait.
Obviously,
you have to bring that one
we
up,
all
bro.
know the
Alabama Auburn game. I want to talk about the shuffle with the Alabama Auburn game. Did y'all not see that Auburn player literally drag him 10 yards through their
Yes.
sidelines and act like an Alabama player wasn't going to do anything about it?
no.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's ridiculous, dude. I felt that guy. I was like, there would have been some hands thrown, obviously, because that wasn't flying.
Gotta use a little situational awareness there.
That's like,
Yeah.
did you see the Texas A&M dude slam the Texas wide receiver in
Yeah.
the end zone right in front of the ref. I'm like, how are you
Yeah,
not
good dumb.
throwing
Like,
a flag there?
Yeah.
Or that dude from Notre Dame literally just socking the dude.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Just-
Boom!
I was like,
Dude, that was like
for
the
one, that's
Georgia
stupid.
Tech
That is
game.
so stupid.
That defensive end
Stupid.
sacked Haynes King, and as he was getting up, he just like slaps him across the face. I'm just like, am I
Yeah, he
tripping, or
deserved
did that
it, man.
not just happen?
Just a final note, just to add, since we're kind of just talking about like random stuff. Did you guys know that right now in NFL coaching talk, and guess whose name got brought in the conversation, which kind of blew my mind? Marcus Freeman. Yeah, that's insane. Like how the yeah
That's,
yeah he's had
I don't
major
think-
talk with
Really?
in the NFL. Yeah, there was like
oh,
it
the
was,
Jets are gonna hire him and then fire him after 2 years or something.
and then come back and be Notre Dame's head coach again. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also there's been
I don't-
major talk with
I
Brian
don't
Kelly
think
coming
Notre
back to not Notre Dame, but this is Scott Nate's take. He thinks that Brian Kelly will be the next head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. He thinks that, and I was like, wow. And he was like, if they didn't, they said if they didn't beat Ohio State, I think that
Scott
they got
Nate,
rid of.
what in the hell, son?
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
no way they fire Sharon Moore, especially after he just beat Ohio
But
State.
if they
with a team.
if they lost, Brian Kelly,
Do
Do we
had the-
think
those
Ryan
ties
Day
with-
keeps his job after this season?
No.
Fuck, no.
He's
I think
gotta
the
get
only
out.
way he does is if he wins a national
If they
championship.
win in the playoffs,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Which
The
they will
only
not.
way. And do you
'Cause
think
if you
that
look
then
at
they
it
just
from-
promote
yeah.
Chip Kelly from offensive coordinator to head coach, or do you think they go elsewhere?
Chip Kelly, it was 3rd and 8 on your own 10, and you run the ball. What in the New
When
York
they got
Giants?
that, when
is
they
that?
got that,
What about
really, bro, that was so unnecessary. When it was like after that turnover, they like were settling for a field goal. They're like, you know what? I don't want a touchdown. I would rather
Yeah.
just kick a field goal, and then they shanked it, so it made it even better.
That kicker sucks.
Any final notes? NFL games are turning on here in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, no. I need to make some bets.
I find it crazy that the Lions and Packers have to play on back-to-back Thursdays.
Yeah, Lions are gonna smoke them.
Did Troy pick the Panthers to win today?
I did actually, yeah. Me and Brady did.
Yes.
did.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought somebody else.
So
picked them.
I can't-
random person freaking commenting saying he liked my picks. Who even was that? I was like,
Oh, that's Brady Lorenz. He was in
Oh.
flight school with me. Andy Garrett and I played golf with him.
nice. man.
He's from the Phoenix area in Arizona, so he's
He's a
a
Cardinals fan.
Cardinals fan. So that's
I'm looking
That's why
letting
he
you guys back into it. I had a good lead,
Usually-
and now I'm just like
Man,
falling
I
apart.
usually do.
We're
do
tied
well
right
with the
now.
Cardinals.
I know.
All right, the
You're
49ers
89.
beat the Bills by 2 scores tonight.
Wow.
Thank you guys for joining us.
that's the
I'm
hottest
kidding, I
take
picked
of
the
this
Bills.
day.
Nuh-uh. Bills suck.
Dude.
Hi, Bob.
Why? Oh,
I
no,
would say
actually,
for the
hold on,
Giants-
Pap. Why do they suck? Why do they
Because
suck?
I don't like the color
No,
blue.
no,
I don't like the color blue.
no.
I don't like the color blue.
No. All right.
I'm going to show somewhere else. I left.
Brian Dable and Joe Shane will get fired before the end of the year for the Giants.
Yep.
Calling it right now.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Check out the Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, merch.
These nuts.
Thanks, Pap. Christmas merch. Go check all that stuff out. So yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back at it next week with an NFL podcast, and I believe Troy is doing a UFC one again because I think there's a
Yeah.
UFC fight.
There is, yeah.
So Troy, there will be a UFC one again. So that's next week's schedule. It's December 1st, so the Christmas episode and the 100th episode are in the works. So be on the lookout for
You
those.
see
Days.
those sleigh bell ringing.
Thanks, man. All right, that's the outro. Pap singing. We appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.